better that it's going to, project 80 times more than yours. That's not the point. It's if you do get it right, you're just not competing with that many guys.
That's exactly it. I always try and simplify, Pat. And I say, like, if everybody starts in a room, and we'll just use 100 because you can extrapolate that very easily up to 10,000, 100, however many people in the tournament. The Masters, we had 400,000. But if everybody starts in the room of 100 people and Scotty's needed and he's 30%, well, only 30 people can get out of room number 1. Now you're in room number 2 with just 29 others. That feels pretty good. You've separated from the pack with that. Now, how do you separate and get into room 3? And I've used the penthouse example before. It's the same thing. Like, how do you get to the next level or the next floor? You need to have it. If you have all the same guys as everybody else in there and they are needed to move on, well, yeah, you get to move on. But now you look in the next room, you're like, shit, nobody really left. We're down to 27 people. It's like you don't get that separation. If you have a unique build that has a couple of separators, for example, Potgeider comes through, but nobody put him with Homa, you might be the only person already in room number 3. And then your other pieces still have to come through, of course, but that can be a way that puts you in a spot that really separates you from the crowd quickly. And that's like talking about pulling levers and depending on the field size that you're in and all that stuff, it matters more. But with 4 guaranteed rounds, it would not shock me, Pat, if we had a lineup that was like Scottie, Potgeider, Homa, Smith, and then you end up getting like your Decky Straka in there that you had Decky, but you get up to Straka too. So it's like you could get something like that in an event like this.
Pat Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience Cadillac Championship DraftKings picks preview, maybe even some strategy. Tambo back in the guest chair full time, back from down south too. How do you not have a tan?
It's Tamboline, Pat, not Tamboline. So, very white. That's how it works. But I don't know. I tried to protect a little SPF 50, get it done. Really was, lathering up the kids, 5 and 9 years old. Obviously, just got to take care of them. So I tried my best, but this is where we landed.
How was it taking the week off from DFS?
Well, it's typically what I do every year. So I think it's phenomenal. I get the event. I actually thought it was awesome getting to tune into a little bit of it there and getting to see the Fitzpatrick brothers get the job done. I did love how everybody just completely wrote it off. Like this guy got dragged to the finish line, even though they put up like 30 under or whatever it was. And he won the Indian Open a couple weeks ago. I'm talking Alex Fitzpatrick, obviously, but that bunker shot on 18 that everybody got to see was obviously something special. And you can't even ask. I saw the PGA Tour posted yesterday. It was like Rory texting him saying, what a fucking bunker shot. And that'll drop too many F-bombs, but that was pretty cool.
So later on this evening, right around midnight, Keith is at Doral. He'll be breaking down the course for us and seeing what he sees, letting us know what's going on inside the ropes. And then on Thursday, Cam, me, Raza, Kentucky Derby, one of the best shows of the year. So stay tuned to Mayo Media Network. Sub right now, rate and review the audio podcast, sub to those as well, and smash the like while you're here. Give me your favorite low-end guy in the DraftKings pool this week. Probably like $6,500 and down. Because, Tambo, Scottie's down in price a little bit at 13.6 versus what we were seeing earlier on in the year when he was 14.5. But there's like 5 really good guys missing. So is there a chance this is the best price he's been all year?
It feels that when you set up, you said a little bit of a discount, not quite in the 14Ks, the 13.6, but excuse me, with the no cut events and the guys down low in like the 6K and even the low 7s have quite a few names that I think people will be wanting to click. Like if you get to the Hogards, the Keegan Bradleys, the Gary Woodlands, all those options there that people love to play and that the projections pop. I do think it's possible to get to him here, no problem. And so I actually think people are going to be interested in playing him, even though I think Cam Young at 10-2 for the discount will be quite popular as well.
Well, what do you think the better way to start off with this when we start building some lineups is? Like, how much more owned do you think Scheffler will be this week versus what we've seen over the past 6 weeks or so?
That's where it's tough to say because the problem, Pat, is like you actually have a really strong 9 and 8K range of guys that you definitely could consider. Now, I don't know if as many people are going to be interested in the 8K range here on a Tuesday morning, but I will say that the other builds with like the 9K guys, if you're or starting with Cam Young, if you don't go with Scottie, you could still land in that same mid 7K zone. So I like some builds that are a bit more aggressive on a week like this. Like you and I can play around with it, but we might be able to do 4 9K guys that we're comfortable with, and then drop down to like the upper 6s, for example, and skip a bunch of ranges while still not playing Scottie, for example.
All right, well, let's do both of those. Let's start with a Scheffler lineup, build it out, and then go and try to do the 9K guys and see what that leaves us. So if you take Scheffler, you end up with 7,280. So it drops us directly down into this range. Do you think the move is just to load up on a whole bunch of these guys or try to find someone down below to give us some sort of a break to get back up to, hell, you can get to Nikolai Højgaard, you can get to Kitayama, you can get to Straka if you wanted to, hell, Spieth, I guess Scott. So just to go down through like the mid eights, like once you get to Scott, I don't know how much interest there's going to be in Bridgman, Spieth, Akshay, Ricky, even Ben Griffin. Like that lower eights probably is a dead zone for most people. It's either going to be Adam Scott and above or Kitayama and below. That would be my initial take here.
Yeah, the one thing is like Minwoo Lee always pops in projections, and I think we saw it even at was it the Masters when this happened, right? He was right there at like 7,600. Now he's got a price boost here at 8,600, but just noting it was like something where people did still end up going to that guy. So I think the Scott factor, because of the past, I know you've gone into this on plenty of other shows, but like it's 2016 versus 2026 that we're talking about here. So how much that matters, I don't know, but Scott doesn't really work well in Scottie lineups. And like you said, I don't see people having a ton of interest in the other guys there. So I think that's going to be more saved for when you get to some of those interesting builds I mentioned before, or the common build, even when you get to that, with a 9K range. But if you go like 3 9K guys and Scott, you might be able to land differently than if you start with just Scottie and then drop down to those 7s. The real question for me, Pat, is who you think is going to be sort of the main guys down in the upper 6K, because I think there's at least, it's not even to get to Scott that you would need it. But I'm saying if you want to get like Højgaard, Keegan Bradley, Gary Woodland, like any of those guys in there, you still kind of got to think about somebody you like in those upper 6K range. And I see a couple names, but what do you think up there?
Connors, for sure, will be popular. Yeah. I think Yella Miraju will probably be pretty popular as well, along with Hitsetsune.
Yeah, good call on that too. Also, Yella, he's been getting, now like everyone keeps saying, like people know about him now, and now he starts getting love. And it is true. Even when the projections weren't on him, it was like 2 weeks ago before I went away on vacation, where I was actually surprised. He got quite the boost from what the, otherwise strong ownership projections had on him. And then he just got steamed up either way. And when he's just sitting at 7K flat, I could definitely see that. Maybe people go with the old Canadian combo there with Yella and Connors. Taylor's there as well, but Connors could be in the mix too.
Yeah, well, Connors has played well at. It's not so much that Doral is a comp course for Torrey, Bay Hill, Augusta. It just, there's a certain level of player that does well at those longer, more difficult courses with the strong fields. And Connors has proven time over time that he's good in those fields. And it's like the crappy field. I know he has the 2 wins at Valero, but overall, like when you go and look through all of his finishes, he tends to play better with the better players at the harder courses, not the opposite, which is really strange.
Yeah, and at 6,900, I talk about it all the time, the best buy pricing. I definitely think it's someone that people are going to want to click on. I think the projections end up liking, Jordan Smith and some of those guys down there. But I think that it's interesting, like you said, at 6,900, people are definitely going to want to go to him just for the style of play. So if you put Connors and Yella, it now lands us like perfect for whatever, what people want to land on for the common build. If you're looking at, like I said, Gary Woodland, whether it's Lowry, Keegan Bradley, who do you have in that sort of mid to upper 7K range? And then we can go down from there.
I don't like any of these guys. Is that weird? Like I don't like Keegan Bradley.
I think.
Like I like Nikolai Højgaard enough. I mean, I always like Nikolai Højgaard, but for that price, when I did out, this is in my column that's up right now too. Jason Day rated out really, really well. And it was funny to go look at because I used the rabbit hole, betspertsgolf.com/Mayo. If you want to use the rabbit hole as well and get yourself a discount, always got to be doing that. But they have the like strokes gain, like 1 stroke gain, 2 stroke gain, like the spike round percentage. Day has the biggest spike round percentage of anyone in the field. He gains over 5 strokes in a single round almost 16% of the time. Scottie's at like 13 for this year. But Day also is about 50-50 to break even with the field at the same time. It's really strange.
Yeah, it seems like it, but I would say too, like when you're getting a guaranteed 4 rounds, that sounds like a pretty good proposition then at 7,700 and potentially lower ownership based on some of the guys around him looking more popular.
And that's exactly where I wanted to go with it. Like, and I think that Straka Like, if you just throw him in, like, be prepared for the worst final round and taking you out of the money. But at all of these, like, bigger tournaments that we've seen, that just, he has these, like, even at Riv, he was in the mix at Riv after 2 rounds and completely faded. At Bay Hill, I think he was in the 3rd to last group and he came like 9th or something like that. He just keeps having these devastating final rounds that takes him out of everything, but it only takes one for him. And he's still down at $7,900, which I don't mind.
Yeah, I think that's important to remember because we don't always do the strategy stuff, but like with a no cut event, and people always talk about this in the smaller field and whatnot. I know people get the fact of like, yeah, you're going to get extra rounds, so you can get the scoring from them and all that. But sometimes it's just 2 spike rounds, Pat, where you get a guy like that and it's like, yeah, he did fade on Sunday. That would be the worst of it because obviously you'd lose position placement points. But if there was 2 really good rounds in there, that can be extremely helpful. And I mean, the Masters isn't quite that. I'm just going to use it as a quick example because it's a smaller field. You cut off all the old guys and whatever you want to call it and say, okay, we're down to a smaller field, and most feels like at least most make the cut. Not everybody does, obviously, but just noting it, you see like certain rounds that pop in there, and those matter more in the end. Somebody can finish like 18th, but still outscore because they got through. They did score in 2 rounds, and it sucks that they didn't finish well for you, but they still could do more than enough. At the Masters, we saw guys where people focused on the names, and so that led to extremely low ownership, and it was like, oh, you can't play Max Homa, you can't play Jordan Spieth right now, you can't play Brooks Koepka, and they all got played somewhat, but they all had pretty decent results for their price point. So I think the call out you have there on guys like Straka and Day and those guys mixed in, what if you get 3 to 5 really good rounds out of them out of their 8, and the other ones are still decent but not as strong? That could still be really good for your lineup in an event like this.
Going a little bit lower, I do like Jordan Smith, who you had mentioned earlier. I don't mind Ryan Fox just because of the distance off the tee. I don't think you have to be a bomber here, but I think that being a bomber here really helps.
Yeah, again, that's So shout out to our guy Alex Blick. I'll be back with him on Leverage Lane tomorrow, and has done an amazing job on here with you. I know he's awesome at everything that he does. So I love working with him. But just to note it, he talked about this directly, not only about the Masters being an event where like people will use this as a comp course sometimes, but also things like you just mentioned with the distance factor. It's like, yeah, golfers that play well at courses that have distance and all that factor, it's just going to show up anyway. But those people that, use that as an after effect when the tournament ends, like, see, it was all bombers. It's like, surprise, bombers are really good at golf and end up near the top of the leaderboards often, but there's other factors that go with that. And a lot of these guys have that in the bag. So I don't think it's going to be any surprise to see that. And if we land on it for like a old Raza skill set lineup too, shout out to Ben Raza, I think that's another thing too, Pat. You can always build that way if you want to build a few lineups and sets.
You can, but I think it's going to lead to like Jordan Smith, ball striking wise. I think that works out. I think you're going to see a lot of people go to Potgieter at 63.
Yeah, especially important to note in the Scottie lineups, right?
Yes.
So that's always like something when people say, well, how could you play Potgieter if he's popular down at 6,300? Like, you don't want to play him, et cetera, et cetera. But just think about how you're playing. And my old adage is not who you play, it's how you play him. How much do you think of let's say he gets to 6 or 7%? Let's just use. If he gets to a number that is high for that low end range versus guys around him that might all be 0.5 or 1%. But how many of those lineups are with Scottie Scheffler? A ton, an absolute ton, right? So it's like, what if you use Potgieter when you're using him in lineups that don't feature Scottie and don't feature maybe Cam Young or something like that, and just build extremely aggressive? I'm sure we'll get there, but just noting it, that's one thing I would think about.
Someone had made mention of this to me. I forget if it was on Twitter or the comment section. Maybe it was an email that came in, mayomediainc@gmail.com, if you ever have questions. That maybe we spend too much time on ownership on this show because, to his point, these lineups are very rarely duped. But that's not the point, is it?
It is not. And sorry, I just got a little sinuses off the plane, so I want to mute that so nobody had to hear that. But just to note it, Pat, that is important to remember. And I just had this conversation with somebody the other day about this, is like, people do spend a lot of time on it. Oftentimes they're trading for 2 to 3 points. It's like, oh, I'm going to play Yella instead of this guy. And then, oh shit, Yella comes in at like 9% higher than I thought. So they actually screwed themselves that way. But the main thing, to your point, is what I talk about all the time, like different constructions and things like that. So when people say, oh, I'm going to go the Scottie Scheffler lineup, but I'm going to move Potgieter to McCarthy or something that's right there. I get it. And yes, that probably does make more sense from that perspective, but it's not really about being duped. It's about being in a very similar lineup where you've almost backed yourself into a corner, because if 3 other plays are the same, yes, it's some leverage that you went on a McCarthy versus a Potgieter, but you didn't really get yourself backed out of any corner up the middle. You need that to happen, but you also need the other stuff to still go the way everybody expects it to go, because you're tied into those same mid-range guys that everybody else is on. That's why when you're seeing your lineups and you say, hey, this 2v2 versus this 2v2, sometimes you can ignore ownership altogether and just say, what puts me in a different construction path that still makes sense? And I can elaborate more, but I think that's kind of the point you're getting to here. So it makes sense from that perspective.
Yeah, so just in this lineup, I changed Potgieter to Homa. That's not really doing anything for me if all of the... I think this lineup's actually pretty... I don't want to say super unique, but I think with Day and Straka in it, even with Connors and Yellow Mirage you, I think you could get away with this. But instead of going, just Potgieter to Homa, that I'm going from 6% to 2%. Like, what a move. It's still the same lineup. And a lot of people are going to have lineups like this. It's just in the lineups like this, the Day and Straka will probably be like Nikolai Højgaard and Adam Scott.
Right. And then I think the other factor is like, if you now can double down on it, where people always expect a pivot. Oh, if I'm not playing Potgieter, I better play Homa. And it happens at every price range. Don't get me wrong. But I'm saying, like, the other idea is how many people are playing Homa and Potgieter. And now, Pat, that allows us to get, you can, even if we left Yella in there, because like, I don't care what people say. I don't care if there's steam. He's going to get steamed up. Fine.
Now we can play Hideki.
Right. Now, how many people have this type of build where you've also changed up what we just talked about? We're like, yeah, okay, Potgieter is going to be in a lot more Scheffler lineups, but is Potgieter going to be in Scheffler lineups that feature Homa and a 9K guy in Hideki? Not nearly as much. And you still have your Jason Day play in there, who you like and is a separator. And you have a unique construction. You have a couple separators in there with like Day, maybe Homa, et cetera. And even if the other guys get a little bit of steam, you still have more leverage built into this lineup because of the way you set it up here.
To boil that point down a little bit more, it really has to do without not necessarily being duped, but as Tambo pointed out, your lineup construction being duped, that if Scheffler comes through and you need to have Scheffler in order to win this week, and Scheffler is the highest owned player, let's just pretend like he's 30% sound right?
I'm gonna wait and see, but I think it's gonna be a little under that still.
Well, let's just use 30 as an example, because maybe you get steam. We'll use 30%. Of those 30% of lineups, those are the only ones that have a chance to win if Scottie wins by 5 strokes, let's say. That you are now basically playing a 2v2 against 30% of the field to try to win. You barely min cash if that happens. So the whole point of it isn't necessarily like, hey, my lineup construction is so much better that it's going to, project 80 times more than yours. That's not the point. It's if you do get it right, you're just not competing with that many guys.
That's exactly it. I always try and simplify, Pat. And I say, like, if everybody starts in a room, and we'll just use 100 because you can extrapolate that very easily up to 10,000, 100, however many people in the tournament. The Masters, we had 400,000. But if everybody starts in the room of 100 people and Scottie's needed and he's 30%, well, only 30 people can get out of room number 1. Now you're in room number 2 with just 29 others. That feels pretty good. You've separated from the pack with that. Now, how do you separate and get into room 3? And I've used the penthouse example before. It's the same thing. Like, how do you get to the next level or the next floor? You need to have it. If you have all the same guys as everybody else in there and they are needed to move on, well, yeah, you get to move on. But now you look in the next room, you're like, shit, nobody really left. We're down to 27 people. It's like you don't get that separation. If you have a unique build that has a couple of separators, for example, Potgieter comes through, but nobody put him with Homa, you might be the only person already in room number 3. And then your other pieces still have to come through, of course, but that can be a way that puts you in a spot that really separates you from the crowd quickly. And that's like talking about pulling levers and depending on the field size that you're in and all that stuff, it matters more. But with 4 guaranteed rounds, it would not shock me, Pat, if we had a lineup that was like Scottie, Potgieter, Homa, Smith, and then you end up getting like your Decky Straka in there that you had Decky, but you get up to Straka too. So it's like you could get something like that in an event like this, definitely.
Underdog's expanding the game. You already know their player picks. Pick higher or lower on player stats. Today, Underdog prediction markets are live in 25 states. Back your squad with spreads, handicap for closer game, or totals, higher, lower combined score, combined with player picks for bigger payouts. New customers play $5 on fantasy, get $75 in fantasy bonus entries. Code Mayo. Team picks, player picks, all on Underdog. Starting something new is terrifying. I remember right before launching this show thinking, what if no one listens? What if it completely flops? And that's something that has persisted every time that I hit record and go to edit a show, even as I'm recording this right now. It never goes away. But taking that leap ended up being one of the best decisions I ever made. And honestly, having something like Shopify back then would have made it a whole lot easier. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses. Whether you're just getting started or scaling up, you can build a clean, professional store with ready-to-use templates that actually match your brand. No coding headaches. And it's not just a storefront. Shopify's got built-in AI tools to help write product descriptions, improve your pages, even upgrade your images. Plus, you can run email and social campaigns right from the platform like you've got a full marketing team behind you. That would have been great like 15 years ago, not gonna lie to you. Best part, everything lives in one place. Inventory, payments, analytics, so you're not juggling 5 different tools to run your business. It's time to turn those what ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/PatMayo. Go to shopify.com/PatMayo. That's shopify.com/PatMayo. Coming back, we just did the Scottie lineup, and we'll do a few more. You know what? Well, let's even do the one that you suggested right before we went to break, which was the 3 6K guys, which I think is super interesting. And I'm not even that big on Potgieter this week. I just understand why people are going to play him if this does benefit bombers. Like we saw JB Holmes essentially break the course record here one round. He shot 62 in the first round, up by 4 on everyone. He still didn't win that week, by the way. But we've seen Potgieter, like he popped at Riviera. We've seen him pop a few times, but we've also seen him come like DFL a bunch of times too. That he's that high volatility guy. I would be okay with like, I can't believe I'm saying, let me just look at Patrick Rogers for a second, see what he's been up to.
Well, I can tell you one thing he's been up to: one less win than Alex Fitzpatrick on the PGA Tour.
As Feinberg pointed out, that Alex Fitzpatrick and Tommy Fleetwood have the exact same amount of PGA Tour wins now.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Shout out to Jeff. That's hilarious.
Let's see. So he hasn't been. So Patrick Rogers hasn't played well at like the longer courses. He's been playing well at not even well, but he has a T11 at the Players, a signature event T16. He has a bunch of distance though. Like if you just want to pivot like off a similar skill set and try to build it out from here, I think just getting off of Potgieter, going to Rogers. I like Homa, but again, he's a candidate for DFL as well. And then we can get up to Fox or Smith. And then we have $8,400 left, which means you could go like Scott Bridgman, which is interesting, or we could do that Hideki thing that we talked about, or you could even try to get, could you fit, where is he? Like Goddard and Nikolai Højgaard, kind of.
Yeah. Talk about firepower. There's a lineup for you, Pat. That's nice.
It's not, we can't get to Nikolai. He's 7,800. It'd have to be like, it would have to be Hideki and Nikolai would be the two that fit.
All right. Could you have went like, I don't know, Goddard Woodland looks kind of nice too.
Yeah, Goddard Woodland works, but no one's going to have lineups like this.
They're not. And that's what I was trying to point out. Like, I guess that's my main focus of what everybody, like people just get so mad. And this doesn't even have Potgieter. I know we pivoted, but it's like, this is a totally different roster construction. So even if Potgieter was in it and made something work and people were like, oh, that loser Potgieter got there at, chalk. Well, like I said, in the room of 100, if he's 6%, in the first room of 100 people, 94 just exited the room to the bad side, and you moved on because you had Potgieter. It's like that's an example. And then if you built differently with him, that's another perspective. But yeah, I think that's what people miss when they're wondering about like how you're playing these guys together and what you're doing with them. They're focused way too much on singular ownership, which is important in things like matchup bets. Obviously, if someone gave you Homa at, let's say 6-1 over Potgieter because that's the ownership, 6-1%. Like, sure, but we're not getting that. We're playing DFS. You need to fill out the lineup with 5 other guys. You have a salary constraint. You have different variables to consider and moves to make. So that's why I think it's important to remember that it's not in a vacuum 1v1 in that spot. There's other ways that you can get it there still.
From that dead range that I was talking to you about, Bridgman, Spieth, Akshay, Fowler, Griffin, I think is going to be wildly underowned. Is there a player in there that you actually do like?
Man,
we've seen Akshay play well at this style of course. Like he won at Bay Hill like 2 months ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would probably like, I don't know, like I guess for me it's gonna go back to sort of just lately and what's capable and possible. And I definitely think the 8K range is going overlooked. And I like Spieth, I like Akshay, and I like Ricky. All there at the bottom that I would consider.
Richard Flowers, huh?
Yeah, I think it's just going to be more of a thought process around like, people just think he sucks. But I think like he was fine last time out. He was fine before that. He had a couple missed cuts, but there was like a 9th, 18th, 19th, 28th. His price is below the average here at 8K. Just nobody's going there. But I liked your Straka play for $100 cheaper, to be honest, too. So I'm fine with that. Kitayama is there at 7,900. Hogard, who you talked about at 78. So it's just there's some really interesting prices for these guys that are going to get 4 rounds and can pop, like we talked about with these spike rounds and things like that. So I mean, JT is 7,700. He's been horrible. Jason Day, 7,700. I liked your call there. Thigala, 7,600. Like, there's definitely guys here that can score over 4 days.
So looking into how guys have been playing recently in this range, and since he cashed me an 80-1 winner like 3 weeks ago, Spawn's just doing exactly the same thing he was doing before he won. He's just ball striking the shit out of the ball and can't putt. Why not just go back? Like, I'm trying to think, like, Jordan Smith is sort of like, when I'm trying to make some of these comps in my mind of higher end players, lower end players, but guys that could theoretically be on the same tier. I know JJ Spawn just won the US Open a year ago. He just won. He's a very good player. He's better than someone like Jordan Smith. But when I see the numbers, he just reminds me of Jordan Smith. Like, those two guys are, I don't want to say equal, but they're the comparisons that I would want. That if we were doing one of those skill stacks, I would want to put them together. And then I think about this course where Spawn doesn't have the most distance, but he's very good off the tee. Like, what is his comp off the tee like to you? Like, thinking about JJ Spawn, I know he plays a cut, he doesn't play a fade, but wouldn't you say he's very like Corey Connors-esque?
Yeah, so he can fit the mold to your perspective. And even if you didn't go the skill set build that you were mentioning, that's the type of thing where, again, anybody who out there who's just going to be building with bombers only or distance only as like the number one factor, it's like distance can lead to the water too, if it goes offline. And so I think you posted in your newsletter, Pat, about Hideki. It's like, I'm just going to take the shot and hopefully it's one of those good off the tee weeks. If it's not, though, what's going to happen? It's not going to end well, right? And at 9K in your lineups, different story than 7.8K JJ Spawn, but you're going to need something to happen with him. So I think for Spawn, just considering him on that off the tee factor is fine. And it doesn't mean everybody else has to be that skill set, but it's why you might consider him where most might overlook him just based off of that distance factor.
Yeah, right now he's 18th off the tee over the last 2 months. He's 18th in accuracy, and in this field, he's like 47th in distance. But he's not short. He's right around like tour average in distance. It's just this field has a lot of very good guys in it. But when you start taking a look at approach play, like he's way better than Scottie's been. I'll tell you that much right now. He's first in strokes gained approach over the last 2 months. Spawn, Morikawa, Adam Scott, Berger, Cam Young.
Yeah, I was trying to see what happens if you do like, because you had Goddard up there in Woodland and just thinking about some of that stuff. And then you mentioned Spawn winning and Gary Woodland just won. And who's kind of coming in with that potential upside, again, how they fit the course, we'll wait and see. But I think all those guys have the firepower here and could definitely score over 4 days. And Woodland kind of, is interesting at 7,400 just because of that reasoning, I think. So I kind of liked what you had there. I just don't know how else you can adjust it. I like that lineup there too. That's another different way to go about it with those 3 6K guys, but using Spawn as the guy instead of Straka.
Yeah, Spawn and Matsuyama ends up fitting this one. So let's go back to this initial one that we threw out with the 4 9K guys. And it has Morikawa, Goddard, Matsuyama, and then Scott at 84. Then you're back into that Jordan Smith area. We can tweak this a little bit though. Like if we wanted to, like, of the 9K guys, like these are the 3 9K guys that I like the best. Is there anyone that I'm not mentioning here that you like the best?
I guess Henley probably pops a little bit for me just because he's $300 less than Young. Again, he's not going to fit for the Bombers narrative by any means, but if you see the price, it's funny because I was talking about Best Buy pricing. He is Best Buy pricing. He's not 10K. He's only 9,900. But I think that also like turns people off on a guy like Henley. Like that's too expensive, right? What was it the year Pat at like the Shell Houston Open back in the day? He was 20-1, and everyone's like, you can't bet that, and then he goes out to win it. So it kind of reminds you of that in DFS perspective.
He's been interesting because his approach play has been good, then bad, good, then bad. And he's someone that you always consider to be so consistent with his approach play. He's going to hit fairways. His approach is going to be excellent. He's he's good around the greens. Maybe he makes some putts, but he's very steady across the board. And to see him go like waver every single week, like at Heritage. He was awful with his approach play. But we saw at the Masters, especially on the weekend, he was so good. Same thing we saw at a Scottie. So it's difficult for me to parse like why he's this much right now, because the results, they have been there. The T3 at the Masters, T6 at Bay Hill. I mean, these are tournaments that I just pointed to that could be good comps for these places. But there's something about him and just the way his profile is setting up that I don't love it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of what you said of the former there, of like the spike, at the top of the show, and the former on the Russell Henley comments is like what he's capable of, what could happen, right? If you do get the third or the sixth or whatever, it's been up or down. You've got a third, a sixth, a 13th, then you've got miscut 19th, 25th type thing in there, right? So, and again, different courses, different styles of play, all that stuff. But in general, the idea of that makes sense. Also, $100 more than Morikawa, who I think for good reason, people are going to land more likely on him at 9,800, or they're just going to go up to play Cam Young at 10-2. So Henley kind of squeezed right in between those two. I think he makes for some unique lineups that way.
All right, so let's think about this. So how would we fill this out? Do we kind of do the same thing that we just did, like Jordan Smith, Corey Connors, or Jordan Smith, who's at 67? Pendrith, Favre. How about your boy Sungjae?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I joked about it last time out, and obviously started much better than he finished, but overall it wasn't a bad week. It just is the way it shaped out. But again, if he could have two of those rounds, like round one of that event, then I'd be a little bit more happy with him. It just hasn't been great for him lately, but he did start strong the last time out. So I don't know. I don't love him, but I'll always play me some Sungjae there at 6,700.
In Florida too. Never a bad spot to play him.
Yeah, we got to see his win there back in the day.
So I'm going to throw this in. This is the spike percentage that I was talking about. You can see I'm sorting by the 4 strokes gained in a single round right here. So Scottie, Cam Young, Justin Rose, Victor is up there. You know, Victor is like bottom 10 in this field in driving distance this year.
Yeah, I believe it. But what are you going to do? It's Victor Hovland. Like, I think some of the stats he seems to pop in, but it's like not going to be what people want to play here. And then he also doesn't fit the mold for much else. Like, people aren't going to love his recent form. They're not going to love anything else about this course really. So I don't think he's going to be getting much love at all.
I don't think so either. I think that he could be a pretty good play. As you can see, he's still spiking. Like 20% of his rounds, he's gaining 4 or more strokes in a round versus the field. If we go to the 5, it's Day, Scheffler, Cam Young, Hideki, Goddard, and Keegan. But you can see Keegan's coin flipping with the field with whether he's good or bad that day. But if he is good, he's really good. And if he's bad, he's really bad. Yeah.
Well, who's popping there a little bit is news just in on Justin Rose, McLaren F1, baby. Get this guy rolling at 8,700. Got the new clubs.
Does that worry you?
I don't know. I know there's a lot of jokes being made about it though, so I wanted to bring it up because remember when he got the Honmas and he won the very next event? Everyone's like, "Oh shit, club change." That's why that narrative is always so dumb, because we're like, "Oh, he switched clubs, you can't win." Wins, then he actually sucks for a year after that. So it was like one event, but just funny he popped there, and at 8,700, it's not that much for him.
It's not. And then we saw, who was it on that list? Akshay was on that list. Keegan Bradley was on that list. Woodland was on that list. You can build like a very interesting lineup like this way, even if you end up using Cantlay, like Cantlay, Hovland, Rose, Akshay, Woodland, Bradley. I don't know if that is the lineup that I prefer the most, but we'll throw that one in. This style of lineup, do you think we'll see much of this?
That's what I was looking at. Like, so the interesting thing about the one before, this still fits it actually, but just like the lineup before this had no 7K guys at all. That was, pretty crazy. The I don't know if you still have it up there, but yeah, this one, 9,998. It still gets Adam Scott in a completely unique way, even if he does get steamed. And then you have 2 guys in the upper 6K range where even if Smith was popular, it's not like you're on Connors, Yella, Potgieter, any of those guys there. So I think, like, again, whether those are your guys that you play it with, that construction is unique. Now, going back to this one, and was the last guy in Keegan? I was just trying to run it up here while you had it on screen. I think it was Cantlay, Hovland, Rose, Akshay, Woodland, Keegan.
Yeah, Woodland's the last. Yeah. Woodland's the cheapest guy in that lineup.
Yeah, so this is actually really interesting because it's, again, like I said, I just don't think anybody can really get to more than 1 or even 2 8K guys if they're, if they like that range. And this is what I was talking about earlier. I talked about some of the guys at the lower end because we were sort of in that range discussing the upper 7s mixed with this and just going up a little bit. But if you've got like Hovland, Rose, and Akshay, obviously the Cantlay part, I think people will be like, I'm not sure about him. But I mean, you could even play Goddard up. Goddard's got wins. Like you could play somebody else up there, but still feel good about the lineup. And what about like Goddard up Matsuyama? instead of that, and then closing it out with Rose, Akshay, Woodland, Keegan. That's nice.
You can dump Woodland because I like Sam Stevens better than I like Woodland. I actually really like Sam Stevens this week at 7,300. Then you can get up to Knapp, and Knapp is your most expensive guy, which sounds awful. Therefore, no one will do it.
Yeah. What's the Knapp sell?
I mean, he's just long. He's been good.
That's good. All right. I like it. I think that's, again, going back to your original question, though, I do think this is a more unique build because you're getting, 2 9s, 2 8s, 2 7s, but it's not even the potential of the 8, 9, and the 7, 8, 9K guys that would be popular in these ranges. And you have mostly good reason. And Jake Knapp is long. So you add that on top as well.
Look, he was 11th at the Masters, 6th in Houston's. I mean, obviously he has the results this year, but some of the places where he did it, Torrey Pines, Riviera, Augusta, like Heritage was never going to be a good course for him. The Players is not a good course for him. This feels like it is a good course for him.
Yeah, I'm always fine. I mean, the upside is definitely there. It's just a matter of what you get out of him. And I don't think people are going to be interested at 9,500. So this lineup is, another example of what we talked about earlier. Hovland and Knapp, not like really this lineup doesn't have many that are popular at all. So it might be a bit, off the page, but with the potential for those spike rounds in there, like Sunday Hovland, if Knapp actually shows up, and you're going to need him to, by the way, that's the other thing people forget, Pat, is at 9,500, you're going to need Knapp to show up. If he doesn't, the lineup's garbage anyway. So like, who cares? That's the whole point about building this stuff out and sort of seeing it from the beginning. If you're feeling this, and this is your lineup that you want to roll out there with Jake Knapp, it's like you're going to need him to show up. So if he does, really good for you. If he doesn't, the lineup's dead anyway. So you just throw it in the garbage. And if you got a portfolio of lineups, hope something else comes through. If it's your only lineup, good news. We get to play it all again next week.
Let's try to build, I don't want to say bottom up, but let's try to build from the perspective of like guys that I've liked so far. So like before we started speaking, I hadn't really given too much consideration to JJ Spawn. So I'm going to throw him. I like Sam Stevens. So let's throw him in. And we can throw in Jason Day as well. Now we're at $9,000. What do you think we can do with this? Is this a lineup where we would want to try something like Jordan Smith, Cam Young, and see what we have left?
Well, I think that's important to remember. So this is a prime example, actually. It's going to land on the perfect thing, and you can set it up that way for now, but I was going to I'll just show you one thing quickly, though.
Yep.
That's interesting. If you go Cam Young, and then you land on, I'm just using popular plays in the 8K range. We could switch it in a second, but I just want to talk through this. If you land on Minwoo and Adam Scott, who I think are going to be the most popular 8K guys, you land on Spawn, Stevens, and Day, your guys.
Oh.
So the reason I bring that up, because the your guys part is important from a DFS perspective, is because I think people do want to play their guys, right, Pat? They say, I got my guys, I'm going to play them. And then what happens after that is because, and I've even had this conversation with you in the past, happy to be back, obviously, in the booths with you, but it's like, you've already got your guys. You can kind of do whatever you want after that. And what I mean by whatever you want, it's to your original point earlier on the ownership perspective. Even if Young, Minwoo, and Scott are super owned, it's like, it doesn't matter. You have a lineup that skips the 9Ks. You have a lineup that skips the Scottie. You have a lineup that skips the 6Ks. And then you also still have low ownership on Day, Stevens, and Spawn. So I know those aren't your guys with Scott and Lee rounding it out and putting Cam Young in there. I'm just saying if Cam Young is the most popular because of that price difference up top, and Minwoo does get steam, and Scott already gets the ownership because of 2016 and his recent form or whatever you want to use for him, it can still work. And you don't have to just drive the vehicle completely off the cliff, right? With your plays. You got your plays, and now you build a good lineup that makes sense. And I think that could work. Now you can finagle it to whatever you had there before, and I think that's fine as well, if you like it.
Yeah, what I had in before was Cam Young, Day, Stevens, and Spawn. And that actually leaves us with exactly the same amount as we just had. We could go Adam Scott and Minwoo. We could go... I thought this was interesting up here. Like, what do you do with, like, Mav McNeely?
Yeah,
who rated out great for me.
That's what I was going to say. I think he's going to just get into some lineups, and I would say he's probably in like the secondary ownership in this range. Like you can always see guys like McNeely and Bridgman, for example, maybe Akshay. You can see that like secondary within a range. We know that it's likely to be Scott, Minwoo. I would actually say English fits into that as well. Like McNeely, English, Bridgman, and Bhatia. I don't see any of them being super popular. I'm saying they can fit into the secondary ownership in that 8K range, not overall.
We haven't talked a ton about Morikawa, who I bet to win this week. He and Hideki are my two favorite bets on the board. He's kind of the antithesis of the player that I've been talking about, but he's sort of the advanced JJ Spawn, if that makes any sense.
Right. And funny enough, you go back to that lineup, Pat, you can actually play talk about playing your guys, take out Cam Young, put in Decky, and I think you'll like your landing spot. And it's a very unique lineup still with 2 9s, an 8, and 3 7s.
There we go. So Spawn, Stevens, Day, Adam Scott with Morikawa and Matsuyama. I like that. This is my favorite lineup we've built.
Right. And it makes sense, right? Because you did the bottom up with your guys from the bottom. You just happen to figure out. That's what people forget. Like if you're bottom up guys in that example, and you can do it top down as well. But in your case, your bottom up guys are not really that owned. And you still didn't go to a popular Cam Young. You still didn't go to Scottie here. You still didn't land on everything everybody else is on, but you can get different and still use Adam Scott. So this could end up being like, let's say Morikawa and Scott are your highest owned guys in this lineup, probably. And then Decky comes in somewhere because everybody up top gets spread out a little bit. Well, you could end up with like 2 guys over 20, 1 guy around 15, and then 3 that are sub 8%. Like it's possible. I don't have it in front of me right now. I'm just noting it. So that's my point where, again, people get caught up in it. This is still a very unique build and plays your guys and still has multiple leverage points built into it that can win pretty much any tournament, but makes a ton of sense for like your single entry because it's all the guys you like in a unique construction with a lineup that's not too crazy or off the wall.
All right. So let's take that. I want to re-import it now. And I want to get rid of Adam Scott. And I want to get rid of one of Day or Stevens. Let's get rid of Day or Spawn. Let's get rid of Day here. And let's drop down to either Jordan Smith, Max Homa. Do you like Homa, or is that just a name we were saying?
I think he's fine. Yeah, I think at 6,400 he is interesting. It's so what do you think about Denny McCarthy?
I'm out on that. I would probably just rather play home, like from that range. Like I wasn't kidding about Rogers, but I like Homa more. I like Jordan Smith more, who's obviously a bit more expensive, and then it would be Fox. Like there's not a ton down here that I like.
What about Novak Nation?
Yeah, I've been trying that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
He's actually been pretty good.
Yeah, he has been.
So yeah, I don't know. Like again, this is where I think though you can always find the money. Like let's say we need $100, and I'm not saying you have to, but like we had to move from Spawn today. We could move around $100 here and there wherever we need to make a lineup make sense. What did you land on here?
So instead of going Scott and whoever the hell else I had in here, it's now Goddard and Jordan Smith.
Yeah, I definitely think that's interesting. Like that makes sense to me. This is where, like, again, you can do variations. If you've got a portfolio, like I could go Spawn Smith to Corey Connors and Day and go back to what we talked about earlier as an example and still be fine with it. And you got 3 9s, 2 7s, but kind of like a high low that not many people are on. And then a 6K guy that might be popular. Fine. But nothing else about this lineup is very popular at all.
Do you think that do you think Jordan Smith is going to be the most popular of the 6K, or it'll be Connors then Smith?
It's tricky because Connors is going to get like the casual boost of like people just clicking him in. So like sometimes that affects more in single entries or higher dollar, smaller fields or stuff like that. But for Jordan Smith projections, it's probably going to be him at 6,800.
Let's take a look here. I'm just going to jump at the rabbit hole. I'm going to filter by conditions. There's 2 conditions that I wanted to look at. One was Florida Man. We can try to take a look at who plays the best in Florida here. I bet you Ricky Castillo pops up because that's kind of the name I wanted to get to. If we could we get?
Still reminds me of your post when you said I think Ricky Castillo would be looks like a good hang.
He does look like a good hang.
It just made me laugh because it was like I look at he's on the screen after you'll see the notification pop up from you, and I look up and I'm like, he kind of does look like a good hang. Let's hang out with Ricky Castillo.
So far this year in the Florida events, like no one has more. I guess Bridgman and Spieth have 12 rounds apiece, but Young, Akshay, Morikawa, Henley, Shooter Sean, Yalamaraju, David Lipsky is a name we haven't talked about at the mid.
You got to play him in a lineup here, Pat. That guy can have 2 spike rounds or more. He could also have 4 really bad rounds, but it's like, man, at 6K, that's actually somewhat interesting.
So let's see what we can do with that.
One thing I hate though is like the sample size. Like we get 6 to 8 rounds. Is there any way we can elaborate it further that you could think of like another filter?
I mean, we just go 3 years. Past 3 years in Florida.
Yeah, that's good too. See, I like doing what you just did without maybe even know it. Like you knew what you switched. Once do you ever look at this and like go, okay, let's look who pops on the low. Obviously, with yellow, you can't do much about it. It shows 8 and 8, no matter what you do. But I'm saying, like, for some of the other spots to see like recently versus long term, and then kind of balance that in the middle somewhere.
Of course. And I mean, this actually breaks down to a little bit of a strategy type thing that I like to do I mean, you've been doing this with me long enough. There's one thing that I'm pretty good at doing is finding guys in the bottom 6,000 range who can spike, just long shots who can get themselves into the mix. They rarely win, and since I usually bet them to win, it does me no good, but it seems to help a few people out here, is that I like looking at the super short-term numbers for guys that are cheap and being like, let's just ride the wave with this guy until it kind of fizzles out.
Yeah, agreed. And that's why I thought the Lipsky thing was at least somewhat interesting, because it's like, if you are getting the round, like, again, so many people look at it and say this guy sucks. It's easy to say that, sure, but
it's
like
true.
the second, the 37th, I know it's a team event, so I don't care too much about that recent, but just saying, like, he's able to pop enough. And you also have to remember, it's baked in. He's literally the stone minimum price. It's built in already. So everything you're telling me, I know, DraftKings knows, and now it's just, what does he do for your lineup, if anything, and then that could be the difference in, something really unique. Like, let's just use Lipsky for a second. I want to try this without Scottie, though.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my point, is not only are people not going to use Lipsky, that if they use Lipsky, it's always going to be with Scottie.
So who's the guy we said earlier? I'm going to use Patrick Rogers for you. Look at this lineup, Pat. We go this. I mentioned this off the top. Remember I said the 4 9Ks could be interesting. You go with Decky, with Knapp, with Gotterup, with Matsuyama, put in Lipsky, and it lands you on Rogers or Homa. Pick your poison. But like, if those 2 6K guys come through, it doesn't mean you win. I get that. I'm just saying, like, this is the type of stuff that not enough people will commit to. And you can play whoever you want at ownership in this lineup once you have Lipsky and Patrick Rogers in there, by the way. So just noting that, I think that's at least somewhat interesting. Change it up however you want. I just showed you skip the 7s, you skip the 8s, you don't play Cam Young or Scottie Scheffler. You can get away with anything you want in this lineup now.
Well, the bet here, and I think this is another way that people need to look at this. It's not so much that, again, that Lipsky and Rogers come through, they're placeholders. In order for you to like climb the mountain and win the GPP, yes, they would have to come through. That is the same fucking cases every single week. Like,
Thank you.
You're going to need your guys to play well. Shocker. But the bet here is that Scottie and Cam Young don't win and that these guys play better.
Yes. And even when, and all the people that are mad when they're like, I got freaking Lipsky right, but Scottie, of course, has an off week. Well, again, is he likely to? No, I'm just knowing, and we can build the Scottie version of it quite easily and still get different. You can build Scottie Lipsky different. I'm just saying that's what ends up happening. And this is where this stuff gets sort of overruled by optimizers, by people that are hand clicking it in or whatever you want to look at. And you could say what you want to say about it, but I'm just noting, when you have a build like this that makes sense, it's kind of like Lipsky and Rogers. Let's say only one of them really comes through, but the other has 2 good spike rounds that are decent enough to score well. What if the other 4 are, the winner, 3rd, 5th, and 9th? That can still be a lineup that wins a GPP in that example.
Let's take a look here. Put in Bridgman, dump Lowry. We're back down at 7,000. Oh, Shooter Sean time. Shooter McGavin. Let's get him in there. So you can build a Scheffler-Lipsky lineup this way. Scheffler-Lipsky with Stevens, Spawn, Bridgman, and Yellow Miraju.
Let's do this. I got to see the last 2. It was Stevens and Spawn. Yeah, it's just, man, this is another good version of you playing your guys. And again, where do you think most people land there? Most people have Hogard over Spawn. Most people have, probably somebody in the, some change that makes this like Connors and Woodland or something over what you've got with Yella and Stevens, for example. So there's all kinds of ways to look at it, but this lineup has 7K guys that will end up in Scottie lineups, but it's still much lower owned than some of the other options around it. And then obviously just having Lipsky and even Bridgman as your 8K guy makes it quite different as well. You could also go get away with, I should say, Day and Scott for Spawn and Bridgman here. And even if Yella gets a little bit of steam or whatever, you've got Lipsky, Stevens, and Day with probably nothing on them. And that's why I'm saying you can still get away with it, even with a popular combination of Lipsky lineups likely to have Scottie within them.
That tracks. All right. I think I'm good here. I'm feeling good about the Cadillac Championship.
Yeah, I like it too. Is there any way to do a Scottie Cam Young lineup with Lipsky?
Let's see. Let's try it out.
But it's like, what does it look like?
Well, it's going to be Potgieter. Actually, it doesn't even need to be Potgieter. If you threw in like Homa and Smith here, you could get up to Stevens, I think. No, you can't. You can get up to Yella Miraju.
Yeah, look at that. I'm going to play that one too, Pat.
Scheffler, Cam Young, Lipsky, Homa, Jordan Smith, Yella Miraju. The only other way you could do this is turn Jordan Smith into Potgieter, and then you could turn Yella Miraju into $7,500, which is Keegan, Mitchell, or Woodland if you wanted it. You turn it in. I mean, I like Stevens more, but you can just turn him into Stevens, which means I can get to 6.
And you could move up Rogers to. We didn't talk about anybody there. It would be like, I don't know, if your boy Michael Kim is 65.
I'm going to say we can go Potgieter to Michael Kim.
And then what does that leave us on the Homa money?
Yeah.
There you go. You think Homa or Rogers? We got to get a definitive answer on this one.
You know what? I'll say Homa because I bet Homa to win this week at outrageous odds.
Okay.
And I did not bet Patrick Rogers. But I think that this is where the difference between DFS and betting comes in. Is that I think that if Homa plays his best, he could win this tournament. I don't think that's the case with Patrick Rogers. But Patrick Rogers probably more likely to come in T8.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you get that spike or that upside from him, I wonder for old time's sake if we could just quickly build Mayo's guys lineup. See if it beats us all these lineups when we're done, all said and done. I'll post about it if it does. If we put Michael Kim, we should put your good hang Ricky Castillo in there. We did not talk once about Siwoo.
That is true. This does not strike me as a Siwoo course, does it for you?
It does not, but that's Siwoo in a nutshell. That's the storyline with him, and obviously not been that bad this season. I mean, people loved him at the Masters at that price tag, and now he's way back up, and he's had good results. It's just more spike, so it makes sense there. Who else do we got?
Akshay.
Yep.
Morikawa and Straka, or Morikawa and Goddard?
No, it's got to be Knapp. You told me he's long, and you settled on him earlier, and it fits perfectly.
Yeah, but I like Goddard way more than I like Knapp, just in general.
All right,
Goddard. How is Jake Knapp $9,500 and guy who's won 4 times in a year Goddard $9,300?
We'll tell you on Sunday. That's how this usually works, because everything you just said makes perfect sense and is so odd when you look at it and think about that stuff, and like how are guys like Russell Henley 9,900 and et cetera, and then the winning lineup ends up having Russell Henley and Jake Knapp in it because golf.
Well, shipitnation.com is where you can check out Tambo and Blickle on Wednesday with Leverage Lane. Tambo will be back with me next week to break down Quail Hollow. Then the 3 of us will reconvene for Aronimik at the PGA Championship.
Yeah, excited for that. Love the majors. Had a Millie Maker sweat at the last one.
I know. I saw.
It was a good week overall. Shout out to Nelson. Cut sweats. He got the job done. Love to see that. Been grinding forever. And so that was cool to see. And then ended up having a pretty good Sunday in Showdown and then picked up a Fantasy Golf World Championship seat last week or the week before at the Heritage as well. So on a good little run right now, hoping to continue it this week at the Cadillac, but it's fun to be back. And hopefully this will help some people out. Alex, I'll be back tomorrow on the Ship It Nation YouTube station, breaking down Leverage Lane, 10:30 a.m. Eastern.
I think what we're going to do for the big DraftKings show, I'm going to see if you want to record on like a Friday or Saturday and release that on the Sunday and get that out like first for everyone.
Fire it up. Love it. For the major? Yeah. Love that. Me, you, Blickle, break it all down and then put it out there early.
Yeah. That'd be the move.
In.
All right. Smash the like. Go over to Ship It Nation. Sub over there as well. And you can follow Tambo on Twitter at ToeTagAndTambo, or just go to shipitnation.com to find everything he does up there. My Substack with ownerships, bets, all the final information, tee times, weather will be coming out on Wednesday afternoon. You can sub to that for free at Substack, Mayo Media, or just hit the description. It's all down there right now. And as I mentioned, betspertsgolf.com/Mayo to get yourself a discount. Do your own research. That's what people on the internet love doing. Their own research and coming to conclusions. Now you can do that at BetSports Golf, okay? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!